What's up, my vlog? What have y'all been up to? Who y'all been fucking? Who y'all been citing? The people would like to know. Just another day in the life of a PhD student. It is, what time is it? 7:57 p.m. I kind of want to work from bed, actually. That's what I want to do. Good morning. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning right now. And I went on a pretty long run this morning. Running is a meditative practice that I picked up when I was an undergraduate student. And I was living with a husky who happens to be my current husky's biological father. I picked it up, and I actually did it in high school too, but not really. Like, I did track, and in middle school I also did track, but it wasn't I didn't really do it like in a competitive way. It was just kind of something to do, to be a part of a club group thing. But yeah, I actually really enjoy running. It's calming for me. I think I really like the idea of the routine that it provides. I really like the routine a lot. And it's also nice to spend time with my dogs in that way. So I did that this morning, and now I have to go pick up some materials for my niece, Penelope, for her Zoom class today. She needs like markers and shit, so I need to go get that right now. And then I'm meeting with my advisor. She just hit me up asking if we could meet. I think we're gonna meet maybe at 1. If not at 1, we're definitely gonna meet at sometime this evening. And when we meet, we usually meet for quite a long time, but we're gonna go over an updated letter of recommendation for the Ford Fellowship. Like the importance of writing your letter of recommendation with your advisor, or at least just making sure that the person who's writing your letter is completely aware of everything that you put into your application. I think that's really, really important. I think it just makes your letter or your application really cohesive, and it shows a level of collaboration with your advisor that I think is really important and will make you stand out. That's what I'm up to today. Do I make exhaustion look sexy? Onward and upward to the next phase of Ford dissertation. Now I have to submit all of the supplementary materials, which include, why does my eyelash look like this? Honestly, don't tell my lash technician, but I actually completely sleep on my side, and I don't think I'm supposed to. I'm supposed to sleep on my back, but oopsie daisy. That looks a little crazy, but it's fine. So I'm working on letters of recommendation. I sent all of my letter writers my materials for the Ford. They could review them while they're writing their letters. It also gives them a more clear understanding of what I've been up to. I'm currently co-writing my letter of recommendation with my advisor. I am so obsessed with my advisor. I love her so much. I honestly feel like I'm in a cult, and I love her. And I'm okay with that. I believe her, and I will follow her into the darkness. I'm working with her on writing that, and I'm really excited. I mentioned in a previous video where I was applying for a different fellowship, how much trauma I have associated with applying for fellowships. This has a lot to do with the really toxic relationship I had with a former advisor. If you find yourself in a toxic relationship with an advisor, it's a lot more common than not in graduate school. I think a lot of people can really speak to having an experience with an advisor who like actually doesn't really want to be your advisor and is kind of mean. I think most tenured faculty at research institutions don't want to be advised. They don't want to mentor graduate students. I think that they don't view it as something that's part of their job, even though it is. And I think it's really easy to blame faculty members, but really, like, it's an institutional problem. I think that the university in itself is the fucking devil. And not to excuse shitty behavior from like my former advisor, for example, but just to say that there's a lot of complexities to the university, and oftentimes it's not just that your advisor is a piece of shit, even though your advisor definitely is a piece of shit. It's also the university as a whole that is a piece of shit. But anyways, so those experiences with my former advisor were like really hard, and it made it really difficult for me to connect with like anybody else, really. But my current advisor is like really great. It's so funny because when I first started working with her, I believe at the end of my 3rd year, going into my 4th year. I just remember the first time she had to write a letter of recommendation for me, and it was like she had just turned into my advisor, you know, so like we knew each other. I took classes with her, but she didn't really know my work, you know. So we met and we were going over the letter because, you know, her practice, and now I really like hold this near and dear to my heart, like she writes letters with her students so that it's very transparent and that her students know that like what she's writing, right? And just trying to create a really strong letter. And now I definitely do that with my students. When they ask me for letters, I actually send them a draft and I ask them for feedback and I say, how can we make this letter as strong as possible for you? And it really comes from her and that practice. And the first time that I wrote a letter with her, it was so funny because we were in her office is in her garage at her house, and we were in her office garage, and she just looks at me and she's just like, blank, I'm not going to say her name, blank sent me the letter that she wrote you last year, and like it's really bad. Like, I don't even think she likes you. Like, it's a really bad letter, right? And she didn't show me the letter, and I'm really happy that she didn't. But she was kind of telling me the kinds of things that my former advisor was saying in the letter, and was saying things that were like really infantilizing, which didn't surprise me because that's the relationship that my former advisor had with me. She was very like, oh, you're just like so young, you're just such a baby, right? So yeah, like these sort of themes came up in the letters, right? And so my current advisor was like, I want you to get funding, so we're going to write this together. So that being said, sat down and we wrote it together. And for those of you who are like going into grad school, or maybe you're in grad school but you haven't had the professionalization talk yet, there are 3 different areas that the university looks at. If you're at a research institution, which is where I'm at, the number 1 is your research, right? All of the contributions you've made to research, all of the like research opportunities you've had if you've been a research assistant, if you have a research position outside of the university, everything that you've done to advance research, right? Because for a research institution, your research and advancing research is the number 1 priority. Secondly comes your teaching. At a research institution, teaching is number 2, but that's not always the case. If you're at a teaching university, the order will be different. So then after your teaching comes, and then you talk about all of your teaching experience and what makes you a strong person in the classroom, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's your service. So what you do at the university, maybe you're a club advisor for undergraduates, maybe you facilitate workshops for undergraduate clubs, maybe you are a part of a mentorship program. So these are kind of like the 3 tiers that you should be including in your letter. And also keep in mind, if you're lucky enough to have an advisor who is willing to write a letter with you, everything in this letter that you're writing is what didn't fit in your application or you couldn't elaborate on in your application, right? So not only is it that your advisor knows you really well, but also your advisor is able to emphasize different things about you that you weren't able to emphasize or really go into depth about. Really take that opportunity to like talk about the shit you've done, because this is the only motherfucking time they're gonna listen. Because in your application, they really don't care. Well, maybe they don't even care about letters of recommendation, but all to say that I think it's a really good practice to be able to write letters with your advisor, because then it also teaches you how to write a letter. Because I think sometimes people just don't know how to write letters of recommendation, and they're so important. They're like the academic currency for undergraduates, for graduate students, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's like super important to also know like what the foundation or organization or thing that you're applying for, like what they emphasize. So for example, I wrote a letter of recommendation for one of my students who was applying to the McNair Scholars Program at UCSB, and I did so much research to see like what it was that the search committee was looking for. So I had to ask people who were like a part of McNair, like, hey, I want to write this letter. I want to make sure it's strong. What should I say? And then they told me, okay, you need to emphasize that she wants to be a professor, that she's really into research, et cetera, et cetera. And by doing that and integrating that in the letter, then it creates this like understanding that you as a letter writer also understand the language of the institution and of McNair Scholars specifically. And I feel like, yeah, that really makes your letter stand out. I don't know if that is like clear. It's kind of shitty because I feel like people don't really talk about writing letters of recommendation, but like we should, you know, like we really should like be more open about that. Maybe your institution is super open and like has a whole series on letter writing. I would love to hear if that's the case, because I think that we should institutionalize some sort of system where like even advisors are taught how to write letters, because no one teaches you how to write a letter of recommendation, and they're really fucking important because they decide a lot about your life. So yeah, hopefully you comment some stuff about your processes of applying for letters of recommendation. I'm going to finish editing today the letter with my advisor, and I'm really excited about getting this done so that I can just start fucking writing my own shit that's dissertation related. So yeah, I'm excited.